What's up, guys? Welcome to Carismo HQ. My name's Kirill. Today we'll be doing a full carbon fiber interior on a Lamborghini Huracan. So this interior set consists of your AC vents, your door handles, as well as of course the signature Carismo steering wheel. In this video I'll walk you through the installation process for both the regular Huracan Carismo steering wheel as well as the LED version, be that the older generation or the newer gen. Alrighty, so just like every other install, we'll begin by disconnecting the battery. And what you'll find is you'll find a little tab right here with two pins. These are just flat head pins. Rotate, they unclip. This little door comes off. And behind this little door, you'll find your battery. So normally we would want to disconnect the negative terminal. That being said, your best access is actually the positive terminal. It's a 10mm socket. We'll disconnect that. You'll take off this clip, put something in between like a microfiber, make sure it's not contacting while you're working on the car, and just leave this alone for now. Alrighty guys, so we've disconnected our battery in the front. We're now on the interior of the car. So we're gonna start by unclipping our airbag. On the Huracans, on pretty much all Audis, it's roughly the same technique. We rotate the steering wheel 90 degrees until on the back housing of the steering wheel, you'll feel that you have access to the clip port. There's two clips. One of them is on the back side left of the airbag. One of them is on the back side right of the airbag. So we wanna rotate the wheel 90 degrees. We wanna get a flat head behind the steering wheel, and we wanna feel the clip and push down. When we're pushing down, pushing the mechanism inward, this is gonna allow us to disengage that side of the airbag. So this is obviously a blind work, but what we found is very useful if you're doing this by yourself is you just use your cell phone's video selfie mode. You put it in your dash, and you should be able to see the opening towards where you're supposed to insert the tool. So if we zoom in right here, you'll actually see the clip itself. That right here is the actual clip that we're aiming for. So once we get our screwdriver over it, we want to push down and you'll feel it unclip. It'll be unmistakable. So we'll do that on this side, unclip it. Keep your fingers here in the gap to make sure it doesn't reclip itself. We'll rotate this the other way. Repeat the process, and at that point, you should be able to take your airbag right out. Now, obviously, we want to disconnect all the wires on the back of your airbag. First thing you're going to disconnect is, you'll see your yellow clock spring connector. On that, you'll see a green little tab. This tab needs to be pushed down and pulled out. As soon as you do that, you'll be able to remove this connector. Yank at it gently, of course, as with anything wiring related. This will give you all the access that you need to the Corsa button connector. This connector will just pull out of the housing. We'll disconnect it all the same. It'll take a little bit of brute force. There we go. That's it, your airbag's disconnected from the car. The next thing is to undo your center nut. That's gonna be an M12 bit. Make sure you get the right bit. It's gonna take quite a little bit of force. You may need somebody to hold the steering wheel for you. If not, just prop your knee up against it. This should make it easier. There we go. Break that loose. But don't unscrew it all the way. You want to leave it screwed in, just a few threads out, so that the steering wheel can move out just a touch. The reason we're doing this is you're going to remove your OEM steering wheel right now, and it might be stuck on there pretty tight. So for you to not rip this out and along with it, rip out your clock spring, you're actually securing your steering wheel with the nut. You can break it loose, but not rip it off because the nut's still on there. This allows us to do this. Okay, here we go, that's it. It's actually disconnected, not stuck in there. We can finish unscrewing the center nut, and then we can safely remove the steering wheel. Center nut out, keep the steering wheel nice and straight. Make sure your clock spring doesn't come with this. Steering wheel off, and that's it. Now, let's just bring it over to a working surface and we can start the disassembly of your original steering wheel. We'll transfer over your controls and buttons onto the new steering wheel, and then we'll be able to put that back on the car. So tools for this part of the installation are pretty simple. We'll need a T6, a T8, and a T20 Torx bit. Make sure that whatever you're using as a tool has a little bit of a longer shaft so that you can get to some of the deeper bolts. So we'll begin on the back side of the steering wheel. I got the T8 Torx bit here. 4 on the bottom leg, 3 per side each. We're gonna unscrew all of these bolts, just loosen all of these, take them out. They're gonna look something like this right here. Some of them are gonna be a little longer, some of them will be shorter. You don't know which one is which. set them aside, and these back clips should all just pop right off. I'll be swapping to the T20 bit now. The T20 bit is the only time we use the T20 bit is actually here. So these are the screws holding your buttons in that are on the front side. We're gonna unscrew these on both sides. Two. And now we're free to remove the faceplate, which is holding all of your buttons and controls. So just to explain how this piece works, it's actually a couple of pieces combined together. This piece is your faceplate, and it sits on 6 pins. 2 pins on the bottom, 2 pins on the top, and 2 little side clips here. So whenever you remove this piece, you wanna make sure that you're tugging at the top portion of it together, moving this side and this side out simultaneously so as to not break this thin connection piece. Same thing on the bottom. This piece should come out relatively at the same time on the bottom. So we'll begin just by pulling on these sides, unclipping them, you see? There's some space where they sit, perfect. Now we'll continue onwards to these 2 clips. They're located one here, right under these holes. This is gonna take a little bit of finger strength. You're gonna put your fingers right around that hole on both sides, and you're just really gonna try to pull this trim out. Make sure you do this in a controlled fashion. Don't just tug away at it because you may pull it out super hard and then break it. See, I pulled it out. Now you see that little gap forming at the top. The top of the trim is out of its housing. We can now move on to the bottom portion of the trim. Now, you see obviously your buttons here, if you have buttons, are connected to this piece of trim. If you don't have buttons, still have dummies, you also want to take it out the same way I'm about to do it. What you're going to do is, instead of tugging at the bottom portion where the clips are, you're actually going to tug at these buttons themselves. You're going to try to keep these buttons together. So here is where it sits in the rubber on one side. Here's where it sits in the rubber on the other side, and there's a peg each in there. So we'll grab it by the button and pull on it. Here we go. Your entire trim should come out as a single piece, and it's ready to be transferred over onto your new Carismo steering wheel. Okie dokie, so here's your new Carismo steering wheel. This one in particular is the new generation LED. We'll be transferring this trim over onto that steering wheel in the reverse fashion of how we took it out. I'll grab the steering wheel. I'll make sure to put the trim on, fit it to the steering wheel. So here it's important to keep in mind that all of the tabs on the bottom, on the top, and most importantly, the leg tabs of your buttons, as well as these knife edge looking tabs right here that go into the rubber, are aligned. What can happen is you can push this in without this being aligned and you'll actually bend that tab. So you definitely want to be checking as you're pushing it in that everything is aligned and going in the proper holes. So I'll be wedging it in from the bottom while double checking that all of the tabs are going in their appropriate slots. There we go. This part. Now I'll make sure that my top tabs are aligned as well. And now we're gonna double check. See, these don't fit fully yet. Make sure they sit as supposed to. Make sure that this isn't all the way. Everything is seated. And here we go, your steering wheel's got its controls back. This is the portion that's only applicable to the LED steering wheels. We'll now be connecting your power wire and your ground wire from the LED shift module to your Corsa button harness. This Corsa button harness has got the 12-volt power and the ground that you need to power your LED steering wheel. So here in the case of the Huracan, what we're tapping into is actually your Corsa button. Your Corsa button has a harness plug right here that consists of several wires. What you'll find is there's 5 of them: yellow, red, black, brown, and kind of turquoise or green. You're only gonna need the red and the black wire. That red and black wire is your power and ground, 12 volts and ground that goes to the Corsa button. So on your LED shift light steering wheel, you'll find 3 wires coming out of the handle. These 3 wires you'll find are blue, red, and black. The only applicable wires are the red and the black. So similarly as on your Corsa button harness, the red wire goes to the red wire on the steering wheel for power, and the black wire goes to the black wire on the Corsa harness for ground. Those two wires connected, we can ignore the blue wire, and this should power up your LED just fine. So we're back in the car. We've assembled our steering wheel. Our controls are back in the wheel. If you have an LED steering wheel, you've already soldered your power and your ground wire to power up the steering wheel. We've actually already gone ahead and introduced, the carbon door handles as well as the vents into the car. So this is the last piece of the puzzle. Now we'll be putting that back on. So to start, you want to make sure that your clock spring is vertical and aligned just the way it was when you took your steering wheel off. We're just gonna set the wheel straight on. Make sure it's in all the way. Make sure this didn't hit anything. Now we're ready to just tighten the center nut. You always want to torque it to spec. Consult the owner's manual for that. Okay, the wheel is nice and sturdy on the car. Make sure everything rotates freely. Now we're just gonna reattach the airbag. The airbag has your clock spring connector. Remember, we're reconnecting that. And your airbag also has your Corsa button connector. There's only two things to reconnect. So we can start by reconnecting the Corsa button connector. Plug that in. Make sure you tuck that out of the way into the little housing that is provided for it. It'll pull the airbag closer. Now you're ready to reconnect your clock spring wire. When you're routing your LED wires, make sure they're sitting nicely along the left edge of the wheel so that they don't get in the way of the legs and the springs of the airbag itself. So we'll reconnect our clock spring connector. Make sure you engage the green tab that we popped out in the beginning. That's it, we're all set. Make sure those wires clear, push them aside, and it's time to clip in your airbag. That's it. Last part to talk about is for the LED steering wheels, obviously there's a communications module. Super simple. We pre-program it for you to make sure that the RPMs are vehicle specific and set. All you have to do is plug this into your OBD2 port, tuck it away. You could use some 3M tape. You could, zip tie it out of the way, whatever you prefer. And this will communicate with your ECU to make sure that the readout of the RPMs that the car is reading and you're seeing on the dash coincide with how we programmed the LED module to work for you on your specific car. So now that all is finished up, let's take a closer look and then take it for a spin. Guys, this was a full transformation on a Lamborghini Huracan interior, including AC vents, door handles, as well as the new generation LED steering wheel. I hope this video helped you on the install of your steering wheel. If you still don't have one, head over to Instagram. You can find us under Carismo Design. We'll make sure to take care of you. See you in the next video.